Produced by Podcast Architects.
Welcome back to another episode of The Path Forward. As always, I'm your host, Dr. Rick Fernandez, and we talk about innovation, education, and blurring the lines between the two. Today, we are in sunny Cy-Fair ISD, and I'm here with the Director of Athletics, Ray Zepeda. Welcome to the show, Ray.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Now, I don't imagine as a student you grew up thinking, I'm going to be an athletic director. I'm going to guess that you were interested in sports, but tell us a little bit about your career path. How did you get to this point?
Well, I would say I was born into it. Both of my parents were educators. My dad was a teacher coach. Probably my earliest memories of my dad was being with him when he was coaching, and then kind of transitioned into being an assistant principal, assistant superintendent, and superintendent at some smaller school districts in South Texas. My mom was a teacher and counselor. So obviously their experience shaped me and then really kind of pointed me in that direction. Sometimes the things that you're closest to, though, kind of also serve to be an antagonistic mechanism. And I was really prepared in college to go and to be a lawyer, to go in the field of legal. And when I went to college, I found that I really missed participating as an athlete. I missed the environment around athletics. And that really kind of caused me to rethink kind of my career pathway and quickly change directions to being a teacher and a coach.
Sure. Now, obviously, a lot of responsibility, right? Cy-Fair ISD has, I know, over 100,000. Do you know the number off the top of your head?
I think it's a little over 118,000.
So almost 120,000 students. High schools, I can't remember off the top of my head, but I know it's, what are we looking at, 30-ish, between 30 and 40?
I don't know if I can tell you high school numbers, but I can speak to you about numbers of athletes for sure.
There are so many student athletes and so many students, both middle school and high school, that are participating here in Cy-Fair ISD. When you think about it, when you boil it down, what's your why? Like, why work with athletes specifically?
Well, I think I'm fired up every day to come to work thinking about these 17,000 athletes that we do have. They motivate me, and I hope that they motivate all of our coaches and administrators to come and bring our best effort every single day. So providing them with the type of experience that I had, an experience that was so positive that it drew you back in as far as your career pathway, is something that I think really is our why and at least my personal motivating action each and every day.
So when you think back to your interactions as a student or growing up, were there some coaches along the way, obviously your dad, but were there other coaches along the way that helped push you, that kind of molded you into being the person you are today?
Well, absolutely. Like, my high school coaches were extremely transformational for me. My head coach, Ronnie Newman, and his staff just really poured into not only myself, but all of my teammates as well. And they didn't do that just when I was in high school, but when I was in college as well. They kind of quickly learned that I had kind of changed course and wanted to be a coach. And so they really continued to invest into me and pour into me. They would take me to coaching school every year before I even graduated from college, and their direct influence and example really served as a motivating force for me. And I think it also has caused me to every day, reflect on what I'm doing back to their example, and making sure that I would be doing actions that would be making them proud today.
Now, where did you go to high school?
I went to Flower Bluff High School in Corpus Christi.
Yeah, I'm very familiar with Flower Bluff. They have excellent football, excellent basketball, have excellent athletics overall. Now, as you're matriculating through the system, right, you go to college. You said you were going to be a lawyer. I figured that maybe it would come in handy with arguing with the referees a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
So when you're in law school and then you have the shift that you're really pulled towards athletics, what's the first district you chose and why?
Well, I went back home. I worked in Corpus Christi ISD my first 3 years, teaching and coaching. Started in the middle school as a middle school coordinator at Hamlin Middle School right there on Staples. Mm-hmm. And then went, after 1 year, I wasn't tough enough to probably stay in middle school, went to high school and coached for 2 years at Ray High School there in Corpus. And, it was what I knew. It was home. It was where I knew people, had probably easiest access into the types of positions that were interesting to me. But quickly I was drawn to the Houston area, and I've pretty much been here for the majority of the rest of my career.
And which school districts have you been a part of in Houston?
Well, I started in HISD, and that was quite the experience. Learned a lot from that. Was there for 3 years. Then went to Galena Park ISD. And was there, left to go back to South Texas for a couple of years, really intending to probably move back home and stay there. But I quickly found that home was Houston, and I came back and worked as the head coach at Galena Park ISD and then eventually Cy-Fair.
So in those different roles, right, leadership is key. How important is it for Cy-Fair ISD to have a supportive, pro-athletic superintendent like Dr. Henry?
Oh, it's the key to our success. I would say not just in athletics, but in every area.
Sure.
His support. He's a visionary. He's a great communicator, and he's got a great heart for this community. And I think his example and his communication and his leadership really sets the tone for the rest of us. I would suggest that any athletic director in the state of Texas really needs a supportive superintendent to be as effective as they can be. But I think it's especially important in a very large school district like ours. I think that it would be very easy in the day-to-day running of the third largest school district in the state of Texas that extracurricular activities would be treated as extra. And he's always one to say to all involved that it's not extra, it's primary. And it's probably just as important as the academic mission that we have here. So academics is always going to drive everything that we do. But that extracurricular experience is something that is a motivating force to so many of our students, and he overtly signals that to everybody every day. And so I think that makes jobs like mine a lot easier, whereas maybe we might be marginalized in some other districts.
No, that's a great point. Some of the arguments when budgets get tight, tax dollars are not coming through the coffers as they were. Some people would say that athletics should be the first thing to go, right? It's extra. You don't need it to get into college. There's a lot of reasons that I've heard throughout my career of why maybe we should dial back, particularly in Texas. It's been my experience that athletics can drive not only the morale of a school, but also the academic outcomes, not for one group of kids, but for all kids, because of the attachment that either athletics, fine arts, extracurriculars can bring to a community. And I think that we oversimplify it sometimes, thinking, all right, well, it's expensive and we don't need it to go to college, so therefore let's remove that. Not really considering how impactful it is to kids' lives. Are there some things you've said, some kids that you can identify or a story you could share that this is exactly what you've seen in your
Yeah, I mean,
experience?
I think I can go back to my coaching experience, and I could point out hundreds of kids
Sure.
that probably wouldn't have graduated from high school if it wasn't for their direct participation in an athletic program. But beyond that, I can say as the athletic director here in Cy-Fair, where we do have over 17,000 athletes, that I can point to holistic academic outcomes where over 50% of our kids, or close to 50% of our kids, are making all A's and B's every grading period. I can point to failure rates that are less than 7 or 8% holistically. So when you start attributing those types of results to their participation and tying that to their participation in athletics, I think that that's a powerful program for impacting academic achievement. And I think that when you talk about the expense of athletics, the overall expense to athletics here in our district even is very small compared to the total piece of the pie. But I think that if you would be able to have any other type of academic achievement program that would elicit this type of and be able to show this type of sustained outcome, I think that there would probably be a lot more money paid for it.
No doubt. I mean, we spend millions upon millions every year for reading tutorials or online tutorials or what have you, trying to help students that are struggling. And sometimes we don't think about, all right, socially, emotionally, where's the connectivity for a student that may be struggling? It may not necessarily be an academic issue, it may be a connectivity issue. And it's been my experience that athletics, extracurriculars provide those opportunities to make a connection with a kid where sometimes we're grasping at straws as to why they're struggling in school. So athletes, particularly student athletes, now are dealing with things that you and I did not have to deal with as kids. It's heightened scrutiny, it's social media. It can really affect their persona, how they feel about themselves. But how does athletics benefit the social emotional components for kids? What have you been able to see that really says, all right, this is not only about their physical well-being, but also their emotional well-being?
Well, with so many kids statistically, you can look at really struggling with their mental health, and maybe 70% of all teenagers now having some form of anxiety. I think that while social and emotional health has sometimes been politicized, those words, it really comes down to students and their mental health and the way that they see themselves. And a lot of times, feeling like that you're a part of something, belonging to a group, does a lot to kind of help the anxiety that kids feel. So many times I think that there's a lot of individual comparison, and social media might lead to that. But I think that when you can identify as part of a group and it's a positive group, I think that goes a long way to really helping some of the things that really are uniquely plaguing our students today.
I think that's a great point. There's a lot of bad with social media, but there's also a lot of good. It's about filtering out and teaching the kids of how to self-monitor, self-filter those things. You know, with respect to the students in Cy-Fair ISD, so I'm a full disclosure, I have 2 students, a third on the way to Cy-Fair ISD schools, and my daughter Reese, who's at Argonne, has had an unbelievable experience, not only with school, but particularly with athletics. And we're a sports family. She has done great. She has loved every minute of it. It's helped her confidence. It's boosted her self-esteem. It's made her more outgoing. Not to mention, she does pretty well. So we've been very pleased with that. What are the benefits? What would you say student athletes inside Fair ISD get compared to maybe some of the neighboring districts? Is there a couple things you want to hang your hat on here?
Well, I think number one, this is a wonderful community and that supports all students. And so I think that along with our administration that we kind of talked about earlier really sets the stage for students to experience success. Secondly, I would be remiss if I didn't mention, we have 17,000 athletes, but we also have 750 coaches. And we compete against some of the best in the state of Texas right here in the greater Houston area, but I would put our 750 coaches holistically up against anybody. We have great individuals who come with the right mindset every day for kids, and I'm so proud to be associated with them, and I think that they are a competitive advantage for us, our coaching staff and our coaches. Beyond that, I do think that we have really a different approach to athletics than maybe some. We're very focused on winning and on competition, and I think everybody in our field is focused on that. But beyond that, we also kind of have a multifaceted approach that also focuses on winning in the classroom and utilizing sports to really drive academic results. We're very data-driven in regards to that. We're going to make sure that every single program on the campus is experiencing success in the academic realm. But beyond that, we're going to work really hard to provide a lot of opportunities for kids to grow through service to their community and also direct leadership experiences, which allows them to really learn a lot of the unique skills that they're going to need later on in life when they, eventually leave sports.
Yes, and hopefully leave the nest as well and get them off the payroll. You make a great point. My wife, Megan, who works at Berks Elementary, she mentioned just all of the ancillary benefits that she sees within the district. I mean, going to 7th grade volleyball with packed gyms, like you don't really see that kind of support and excitement around middle school athletics around the state. And every game that we've been at, it has felt like a high school volleyball type of experience, which I think is great because, like you said, it's about the competition, it's about sportsmanship. And that experience, I think, goes a long way in setting the stage for her academics because she wants to continue to get on the court. She wants to continue to excel. And even your coaches, how well they communicate as the teachers of record. I'm not even talking about as coach, but I get multiple emails a week just checking in from the coaching staff that my daughter has for the courses at Argonne. And it is unbelievable how forward-thinking and proactive they are. So kudos to them. Sorry, it was a shameless plug, but they have really done a great job, and we've really had a great experience. Now, 17,000 kids, that's a lot of kids.
It is.
When you started at Cy-Fair ISD, did you have a vision or where did you want to take the athletic program?
Well, I think that the vision was really the approach that I just mentioned to you. We started out with a vision of really utilizing athletics as a motivating force to driving achievement in the areas of academics, and then really combining that to say, how can we holistically partner with parents to help grow their children? And so we wanted to provide and craft experiences off the field and off the court that allowed them to lead and to grow through service to the community. You can only look at kind of the situations that we have had, come up where communities kind of tearing each other apart, that can't seem to get along and understand each other. And we felt like, we want the next generation to do better. And so we want them to learn what it means to be a good community member and how to work with others and work with other people that might not see things the way that you do. And so everything that we do kind of goes back to that mission of how can we be great in competition, yes, but how can we also provide these critical experiences that kids really need to grow and learn?
No, absolutely. No one cares your political affiliation when you're playing pickup basketball.
No.
No, can you get the best team out there and can you win the game? That's really the only thing that people care about. So athletics is a great equalizer and a great way to pull people in of different beliefs, different cultures, and I've always found that experience very positive in terms of athletics.
Well, you mentioned going to a middle school basketball game and volleyball game and seeing the crowd that's there. When you really look at the types of activities that bring people together in our community, I think that I'm very proud to say a lot of times it is athletics, and that really goes to how supportive this community really is and what a special place it is.
So you mentioned the competition, and one of the reasons that I think it's very valuable for kids to be here in Cy-Fair is the level of competition. You've got great athletes, you've got a large number of students. When you think about your time as a coach and even your time as an athlete, what are kids facing nowadays? Some of the things that we didn't have to face. How's the coaching profession changed in your mind?
Well, I think it's changed a lot. I mean, I think that when I kind of came up, and you sound like an old person when you say that, and I guess I am, is that the focus was on doing what the coach said. The needs of the program were greater than the needs of the individual, and I think that that's kind of what shaped my experience in many of our generation. And I think that things have changed a little bit. I think that today. You mentioned social media, and even if you go on to what colleges are experiencing through NIL, et cetera, I think it's put the focus more on the individual. And so sometimes, just like everything else, athletics can be more transactional in nature. And so I think that for those of us in this field, we have to really guard against that and really work hard to continue to make it a positively transformational situation for our students, and to try to take the focus on it being an individual transactional situation for individual students.
I want to pick your brain on something that obviously can feed into athletics, but also at times can be a little bit of a distractor. Select AAU, those type of things. What advice would you give to a parent or an athlete that's involved in that, and how to kind of navigate that, but staying obviously true to their school district?
Well, we benefit, from our kids
Sure.
participating in those activities. I would think that that's a key to our success. You mentioned the support that you see at a 7th grade volleyball game. That's going to also be the type of support that would cause someone to pay thousands of dollars to have
Yes.
their student participate in a highly structured athletic environment. And so it's not always all bad. There's a lot of good that comes with that, but I think that you also have to be, I guess the advice I would give a parent is that they have to be very mindful that the people that are giving them information are people that they're paying.
Right.
And so they have an incentive to tell you sometimes what you might want to hear. And I think that you need to try to get the best out of that situation. We have a lot of great AAU and club programs here in our area. A lot of them are great partners with our coaches in our school district. But I do think that you always also just have to be really mindful of what they're telling you and try to keep your focus on holistically. It's going to be when they come back to our environment about the program, about the team, and et cetera. So I think that's the main thing.
If you look into the college ranks, we was watching A&M on Saturday. My wife's an Aggie. Watching the young man from the Bridgelands, Connor Wegman, I believe his name is. And just thinking in terms of college athletics, when I was in college, you had 4 years was your scholarship, and the school had to honor that. And now things have changed, right? It feels like the students have a lot more power, the transfer portals and the different opportunities to make revenue while they're in school. How do you coach your juniors and your seniors as they're matriculating into the college ranks? Is there things that we can do as educators to help them navigate some of those pitfalls as they get up the ladder?
Well, I think the number one thing is it always helps just to be a good person.
Yep.
And so, when you're a good person and you have the right focus, you can usually navigate your way through any adversity or any challenge. And so I think the first thing that we need to do is to try to help them be good people. And I hope that we're doing that. Secondly, though, I do think it's important for our coaches and our department to kind of stay at the forefront of of really understanding what's out there in regards to like NIL and some of the opportunities and things that kind of complicate some of the collegiate experience, and serve as as a resource for our parents. And so that's one thing that we've been trying to do, is to stay as educated as we can about all of those things, so that we can be a great resource for our parents as their kids are now transitioning from high school into college. And we fortunately have had several athletes. You mentioned Connor, on the other side of the ball the other night. Harold Perkins from LSU played. They played against each other right out here. So to see those kids and all of our kids go on to participate is just awesome to watch. But we also learn from their experience, and so we continue to engage with those athletes and to try to learn of how we can better prepare our athletes that are coming up right now.
Excellent. Coach, as a parent of an athlete, what's a great piece of advice you would give a parent like myself?
Well, I think first and foremost, I'm a parent as well. I've had, 3 kids, and my youngest son is a senior right now at Bridgeland, and so he just finished up his senior football season. And all 3 of my kids were great students, and when they went into a classroom, even taking advanced classes, they had great success. But unfortunately, we gave them some bad genetics in other ways, and so there have been times in their sporting careers.
When you say they, you mean
my
your
kids?
side of
My kids.
Your side of the family gave them the bad genetics.
No, absolutely.
I'm trying to bail you out of that one.
No, absolutely. And so I think that they've had to struggle at times.
Sure.
And I found that that struggle has been good for them. I mean, they need. I think kids and all individuals need to learn how to work past adversity. And the piece of advice that I would give parents today is that they need to allow their students to work through adversity and disappointment and try to navigate their way through that. Guide them, yes. Prepare them, of course. But don't shield them from that. And I think a lot of times today, parents are so busy scurrying in front of their student, trying to prepare the path and make everything straight for them. And one of the best pieces of advice I've always heard is, don't prepare the path for the child, prepare the child for the path.
Absolutely.
And I think the more that we can really make kids, help them to be resilient and build into them some skills where they can navigate this themselves while we're here partnering, listening, giving them feedback, but allowing them to handle their adversity, I think the more prepared they're going to be to leave us and go experience success. And so that would probably be the biggest piece of advice that I could give a parent, is to, no one ever wants to see their children fail or experience a struggle. But I would suggest, too, that you sometimes learn a lot more through the struggle than you do the success.
There's no question. I mean, those big losses, right? And I can think back to all of the big losses in my career in high school and college, and vividly remember what happened and why we didn't achieve what we wanted to. But that spurred me to do something else, to either become motivated to get better or to take that as a learning lesson. And I've always believed that athletics and leadership go hand in hand, right? And it doesn't matter what you do. And for the majority of my career, coaching principals, coaching teachers, I think it's the same philosophy. It's like, how do you coach kids? What would you expect if you went to Little League practice and the coaches said nothing to the kids all week long, and then they showed up game day, right? You would think, what are they doing? And I think our teachers need the same type of feedback, where it's very specific and it's encouraging and it's very regular, right? Because you want them to grow. What are some of the things that you've noticed between athletics and just leadership in general?
Well, I think athletics is a great forum for learning leadership. I think when you start out as a young athlete, you're typically one of the youngest there, and you watch and you see effective leaders, both your peers and then also your coaches, and you also see some ineffective leaders, both again your peers and your coaches, and you learn through that, and you see the tangible benefits of great leadership. So eventually, I would hope that athletes here in Cy-Fair are given multiple ways of growing as leaders. I do know that we're presently working with a lot of really dedicated coaches on our campuses to form student leadership teams on each of our campuses that then try to impact the larger athletic program on that campus. And this year, we've started to work towards developing a district-wide student-athlete leadership team, and we meet with them on a regular basis, bring speakers in to talk to them. But one of the things that we do is, and we remind ourselves of this every day, is we bring them together and then we ask them questions and we shut up. We allow them to talk and to lead. And it's amazing what these kids will tell you when you allow them to talk. and you learn from them. And I think it's going to allow not only our students to become better leaders, but allow us to craft a better program for them because they're telling us what they need in order to experience the greatest success in their short time here with us.
So in terms of leadership, you gave a piece of advice for parents. What about a piece of advice for a brand new coach coming out of college, ready to change the world? What is some advice you'd give a brand new coach?
I think you got to get to work. I think, you got to get to work and be willing to do any and everything at the start. I can think back to some of the tasks that I did in my first couple of years. I mean, my head coach, my first 3 years, I went out there. I was the water coordinator for the for the grass fields and would have to go take the old sprinklers and put them in the little socket and turn it. And, I can remember him telling me one time I couldn't find the sprinklers. And he said, well, hey, there's a hose out there. And he literally expected me to go out there and water the football field with the hose. And I kind of shut up and went and got a lawn chair and got it done. Those were good experiences for me. And so I would suggest to all coaches that the best piece of advice I could give them is, hey, get busy, get started, do everything that maybe someone else doesn't want to do, and listen and learn and watch and the impact that different coaches and their approaches have on children. And you'll quickly see the coaches that are truly effective and impactful, and then go do what they're doing, but in your own way.
Yes. Coach, advice for student athletes.
Number one thing I would suggest is that they need to realize it's always about right now. I mean, it's the power of now. I think all of us that are older, you learn how limited your time really is as a competitive athlete, and it always ends. That experience ends for everybody. And so if you understand how short it is, it kind of frames up what now should be like. And I think that when you realize that, the power of right now and of maximizing that moment to doing the next right action and investing in being your best as an athlete is super important. There's so many times when I conducted exit interviews as a coach with my seniors, and I would sit down and I would ask them, what did they learn through the process? Almost all of them, and what would they change? Almost all of them would say, hey, I wish if I would have known how fast this was, I would have done A, B, C, and D different. And what they sacrificed sometimes in the moment was what they probably should have been doing for what was comfortable for them, and they realized that had a negative impact on the totality of their experience. So I would suggest to kids is that you really need to maximize right now and realize how special it is to be an athlete. If you talk to anybody that has been an athlete, what do they want to do? They want to go back.
Yep. Do it right. Yeah, do it better. Try to do more.
And do it again. And you only get one opportunity sometimes to do that. So I would make the most of that opportunity.
You hit on a point that I struggle with, and not only with my own kids, but some of our kids in general, is delaying gratification. Right. The sacrifice up front for the benefit later. And it seems like now, because everything is so fast, so quick, you can have anything that you want really fairly quickly. But getting kids to understand, like, I have to sacrifice some components of things I'd love to do to be good at a sport or to be academically high achieving, or whatever that may be. But getting kids to be able to see that and make that connection of, let me delay because we've got to do the work first, and then you'll reap the benefits. It seems to be a little bit more of a struggle. Do you find that with the kids nowadays? It's just, because everything is just instantaneous.
Well, it's not just with the kids, right?
It's adults.
It's everybody. Yeah. So I think that, everybody wants things right now, and that's just not the way the world works. And so, you asked me earlier about the kind of some of the intrinsic benefits of participating in an athlete, and I think that's what your athletic experience teaches you, is that if you don't put the work in, you're going to be exposed. And so taking those steps, embracing the grind of right now and today, and being part of a team and doing that together, I think if you can learn that, that's going to really truly be a separator for you later on in your life, especially in a society where it's always about I want it now,
right.
and I want it the way that I want it, and I think that that's something that our activities do a great job of teaching kids.
Okay, let's have some fun. You ready?
Absolutely.
You have not been prepped for any of these questions. I just want the audience to know.
That's scary, yeah.
No, it'll be harmless. Okay, if you could only watch one sporting event, past or present, for the rest of your life, meaning you turn on the TV on a Saturday, you can't watch college football, you can only watch one event for the rest of your life when it comes to sports.
One specific event?
One specific event, what would it be?
Wow, that's a great question. It would have to be some sort of football game. Football is my sport, and so I don't know if I could pick out one game. I guess if I could go back and watch my 18-year-old self play in one game, that would probably be the most enjoyable thing. But I don't know.
Can you recall the greatest football game you ever either participated in or were a witness to?
Well, I would suggest this, that I can think back to high school, obviously a game that meant a lot to me. But I think the games that have come to mean more to me now are the games when I was coaching and watching athletes be successful. So I could point to a lot of games involving kids that were very special to me and think back to the success, seeing them have success and how meaningful that was. And I could certainly pick out a number of those games. Matter of fact, I just saw a couple of former athletes this past weekend, and, we do exactly what we always do, which is to talk about those old games.
Yep. Is there a win that you can think of, like, that was the best win of our season?
Well, I don't know that. I do know that I was fortunate enough to coach in some places where those wins were sometimes hard, and you really had to work hard. I worked in a lot of school districts with economically disadvantaged children, and they didn't have a lot of past experience when they got to me, but I think it really allowed us to be impactful. So I can think of my very first game as a head coach at Galena Park and playing Montgomery, and lined up to kick an extra point to tie a game, and they called timeout to put on a field goal block, and we went for two and ran the other way from their field goal block and won the game. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, it's a great memory to me now. But again, it's not the outcome that's the memory. It's the people. And so I would point back to that probably.
If you could work for one coach, not in the high school ranks, but a professional coach, college coach that you've never had the opportunity, who would that be?
Oh, Nick Saban. I think that obviously I think he's the most transformative, football coach in my lifetime. And I know that he's a very challenging person to work for, given people that I know that have worked for him. But I think that there's also a lot of people that have derived a lot of benefit from really, participating in the grind that is working for him. So I think I could learn a lot from working for him.
So it's safe to say you're an Alabama fan?
I am not. I'm an A&M graduate, so I would hope that we beat them every single time that we can. And unfortunately, that doesn't happen very often. But no, I'm not an Alabama fan. But I'm probably a Nick Saban fan and admirer of his.
Fair enough. Dr. Henry, what do you think his 40-yard dash would be?
Wow. He prides himself as being an athlete. He thinks that he's a great basketball player. And
really?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh,
absolutely.
Okay.
He would love to play one-on-one with you and probably talk trash as he did it.
I don't doubt that a bit, yes.
I would see that he would have a hard time running under 6 flat, but he would probably say that he could run a 5.2 today, So
could he beat you now if y'all went out?
He's the boss. He would absolutely win. I would make sure that he won.
That's a great answer. Yeah, you'd be doctoring that clock down a little bit.
If he couldn't beat me, I'd make sure he beat me. Absolutely.
Fair enough. Okay, I've got some sports that I want to throw out there as potential additions to Cy-Fair ISD.
Outstanding.
And you can give me the thumbs up or the thumbs down. I've given this very little thought, and you can probably tell by the sports I'm going to suggest. What about cornhole?
Well, I think that we have some parents that are probably pretty darn good at cornhole and washers, so we could probably put together a great community team. That's probably far down the list here, though.
Oh, man. Okay. Frisbee golf.
We actually have a Frisbee golf course over at Goodson Middle School, and so we probably have some kids that are pretty darn good at Frisbee golf. And really, with any of these sports you're about to mention, if we had a chance to win, I'd be all for it.
Pickleball.
Pickleball, absolutely. Fastest growing sport in the United States. So absolutely. Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay, this one is going to be controversial. Dodgeball. I know we can't have it in schools anymore.
Yeah, dodgeball is probably something that would get me in trouble, so we're going to steer away from dodgeball.
Just the adult leagues in dodgeball. Okay, which sport, if you were going to say, all right, if there was ever an opportunity to introduce this, I'd throw it out there.
Well, I think we offer a pretty comprehensive high school program, yes. and so, there are not very many high school activities that are still out there that I feel like we're missing. Maybe the next one would be lacrosse. Lacrosse would have to be adopted as a UIL sport, but we have a lot of lacrosse players here in the Cypress area. But I know on the middle school level, we would like to do more. And you and I were talking before we got on about the budgetary pressures that are out there. But we definitely would like to get soccer started at our middle schools pretty quickly.
Absolutely.
And I think that if we have a community that would very much be supportive of that, and so that's something that that we would hope would be up next for us here.
I spent the better part of my life in gymnasiums, and after one cross-country season, I would vote for an indoor bubble at every single middle school in Cy-Fair ISD, just because, man, the weather, it was hot, and those kids were they were tore it up anyway. And I'm like, golly, this is why I stayed in the gym.
Yeah, it's when I came out here, we didn't have middle school cross country at Galena Park, and a lot of other school districts did not. And I was really indoctrinated the right way. Can remember going to my first middle school district cross country meet, and to see the numbers of kids and community members out for that. It was just awesome. And so that's probably one of my favorite activities of the entire year, that middle school district cross-country meet. And so it is something that we're really proud of.
No, it was run very well, which is something to say with the scope and size of the district. I was always very impressed with how well it was, the communication, how it was set up, and the kids had a great experience. The parents had a great experience. I mean, it was really awesome, except for, me thinking like, man, I don't run unless I get chased, but more power to the kids.
I'm of that same mindset, but, we have some fabulous coaches that really organize that and put that on, and they make sure that it's better every single year, and all the credit really goes to them.
Which sport is your favorite to watch? I know, other than football, I'll throw that out there because I know you're a football guy.
I'm a big baseball guy, and so for a lot of people, baseball's boring or it's slow. But the anticipation of what might happen, I love baseball. So I like baseball, but I really like any sport. It's really, again, it's not about the games; it's about the people, it's about the adversity, it's about the challenge, and I can really watch any sport because you can find that in any sport.
Absolutely. All right, last sport I want to throw out there for possible adoption. Shuffleboard.
No, I think you'd have a hard time as an athletic director here in the state of Texas with the sports that you're bringing up. Now, I can't see shuffleboard anytime soon.
You realize that I'm trying to pander to folks our age that have a little less mobility than when they were younger. I'm trying to keep us, just the arm. I may get a little tennis elbow from the shuffleboard, or pickleball. I can reach almost across the whole court sometimes. So
pickleball is obviously a little bit easier. You have a little less mobility to play pickleball than you do tennis, but it's interesting though. And I don't know if we're going to adopt any of your sports anytime soon.
That's a no.
But we're going to try to do our sports the best we can. I can promise you that.
And you guys have done more than that. You've really impacted your students, this community, and I love, but more importantly, my kids love being a part of Cy-Fair ISD. And particularly Cy-Fair ISD athletics. So.
Well, that means a lot to me, and that's really the goal. That every single day when we come to work, it's to have a great experience, provide that for kids and for their parents as well. And I know we sometimes swing and miss on that, but it's definitely the goal to come every day and make this an awesome opportunity for students.
Well, I think that is. You have done justice to doing just that. So, Coach, I want to thank you for joining us on the show, and I look forward to seeing you a little bit more as we grow into athletics here in Cy-Fair ISD.
Well, I know that you said you've got young students, so I hope that you're saying the same thing 4, 5, 6 years from now.
I will be, absolutely. I have no doubt about that at all.
Very good. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here, Coach.
Thank you.
Produced by Podcast Architects.